Hello and welcome to Frameline 45, the San Francisco International LGBTQ Film Festival. I am Allegra Madsen, the Director of Programs, and I am thrilled to present Frameline Talks, sponsored by Variety. Today we have Wilson Cruz in conversation with Rafi Ermac. And without further ado, I'd love to bring on Rafi.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rafi Ermac. I'm the editor-in-chief of Pride.com. I'm an entertainment journalist with a few years' experience working in the field. I talk about the intersections of pop culture and identity. And today I'm in conversation with Wilson Cruz, whose credits include My So-Called Life, Rent, Noah's Ark, and most recently, Star Trek Discovery. Thank you for joining us, Wilson.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be with Frameline again.
Yeah, they do great work. And it's nice to just connect. I know we're still in crazy times and it's still there's light at the end of the tunnel, but it's still nice to chat with folks. So thank you
Well,
again.
my crazy times are a little crazier than your crazy times because
Yeah.
I'm in Canada where it's very, very different. But I am surviving it.
Oh. She's
But
fully
it's, I
vaxxed.
mean, I have to say, it's really hard to see everybody,
Yeah.
start up their lives again and rip off their masks when those of us in Canada are not having that
Um,
experience.
um, hopefully it gets better soon. I'm still keeping my mask on if that helps, even though she's fully
Thank you.
vaxxed.
Yes, I think I will be for a little while too.
So I guess just to kick things off, I know we got a limited time, but I was wondering if you could take me behind if you could recall your earliest memory of ever seeing yourself reflected or represented on screen. I know today's topic is about queering TV, especially for LGBTQ youth. So, do you remember how old you were when you first saw yourself reflected on screen, or what was it about this character as a person that you identified with the most, and how do you remember it making you feel?
I only have one honest way of answering this question, and it's the truth. The first time I saw myself represented on television was when I was on television.
Hmm.
And I have racked my brain for years because many times, I've been asked this question many times through the decades. And the most honest answer is when Ricky Vasquez showed up on screen, he represented me as well. And I had the same experience that viewers had when I would open up the scripts and read it for the first time. To see my experience in my life and my questions all there on the page was something that I didn't ever think I would experience. Not as an actor and not as a viewer. It's something that I longed for. But there was it was also fraught as well because it required me to step up and be the kind of character that I longed to see, right? Because I knew what it would mean to people who were and are like me. And now after 25 years, a couple of generations have been introduced to Ricky Vasquez. It's now on Hulu again. I get to relive this experience with every new person who confronts Ricky, and I do mean confront. I think he forces you to pay attention, and he freed me in a lot of ways. He allowed me to go through those experiences as a character and leave them on the stage, and it was incredibly cathartic for me. And from what I understand from people who have viewed the show through the years, it has had that exact same effect on the viewer, and that I could not ask for anything more than that as an actor and as an activist.
I feel like there are a lot of ongoing discussions about how LGBTQ representation is important, but I feel like a lot of those conversations don't specifically mention younger generations of queer youth. And you mentioned you didn't see yourself until you were yourself on screen, until you were you were young, but uh, child age, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
why is it important for queer youth especially to see themselves represented in the media they consume, and what does it teach queer kids?
Well, I'm a firm believer that one of the most debilitating experiences any human person can have is invisibility. When you are not noticed, acknowledged, um, valued by being seen, it has an effect on everything and everyone, and every relationship that we have. Um, when you see yourself and your story, or a story that you can relate to on the screen that speaks directly to your experience, you feel validated. You feel like, you're not alone in the world, that you're not crazy. I remember being very young and wondering if I was the only gay person in the world. And um, it was through the bonds that I created with like-minded people and people who had similar experiences that helped me through. So when I think about characters on television, um, that experience is magnified, right? Millions of young people who get to see that character and understand themselves are freed from the pain of being invisible, of wondering if anybody can ever relate to them or love them or see them or appreciate their experience. And um, especially in terms of youth, I think in those developmental stages, that visibility, that acknowledgement is vital to your development, to who you become as a person, how you function in society, if you can succeed in your career, if you have a successful relationship, if you even know that a relationship is possible for you. Um, you know, Television and media is a key into our culture, and allows us to imagine our own lives and what we want them to be. So it's incredibly important to see yourself on screen, and especially if you're a young person. And so I love the ubiquity of young queer people on television right now, in comparison to what I had.
Mhm. And speaking of that, queer youth, I feel have there's still a long way to go, but I feel like queer youth now have more offerings on television and film than ever before, where they can see themselves as like the main characters and the heroes. Are there like positive examples that you see? Like, what's some of your favorites? Like, are there any shows that you feel are doing like a good job of representing queer youth?
Yes, and I've seen so many of them because I've been locked in this
Mhm.
apartment for a year. um, so
Binge
when you
watching.
ask me that, I'm like, oh my god, I try to remember all of my favorites.
Right.
Well, first and foremost, I think one of the most powerful and successful depictions of a young queer person on television right now is on Star Trek Discovery. We have two of them, played by Blue Del Barrio and Ian Alexander, whose characters also happen to be in love,
Mhm. Oh.
and are also a part of the chosen family, the adoptive family that Anthony Rapp and I have created on the show. So we get to tackle not only uh, the self-discovery of a queer young person, but how those familial and chosen family ties affect that. Um, so I can't say enough about those two actors, their performances, and the storyline, because I think it's important to see that not only have we always been here, but in the year 3188, there we are,
Mhm.
relying on each other, taking care of each other, um, discovering the universe together, and saving the world. So outside of that, I will also say that my favorite television depictions for young people, obviously, Pose, where we see young people of color um, navigating New York City and that urban landscape and the ballrooms and those chosen families. It's incredibly powerful for me to see that. Um, all of those little Rickies, as I call them, running around. I also think about Love Victor on Hulu, which it's just another Latino family, another people of color family, but in a suburban setting, that is the experience of so many people in our country. And those great actors, my friend Anna Ortiz playing a loving Latina mom on there. I think of Never Have I Ever with that young lesbian girl on that show and that storyline and her friendships. Veneno, in Veneno on HBO Max, we got to see this young trans person discover their transness and rely on her mentors to become the woman that she is, and how she helps her mentors in their life. And that story of Veneno is heartbreaking, and that filmmaking was electrifying. It was my favorite television viewing experience of the year. I could go on and on. If you let me, I would go through so many more. I also think about animation. I'm on a series called Bravest Knight with T.R. Knight, and we're married. I play a prince because I'm royalty. I don't know if you knew that. And he and I are married and raising our Black daughter together. So, just seeing a family like that is incredibly powerful for young people, and for families, LGBTQ families, to see themselves.
hmm I was just about to mention animation too, because I feel like
Oh,
queer representation doesn't have to be like limited to live action, especially for youth. Like animation is a great way of bringing and showcasing queer rep to the mainstream, especially for even younger audiences. So,
hmm.
and your role and involvement in the Bravest Night is like a perfect example. Do you like helping bring LGBTQ representation to little kids in that way, and
Oh my
that's
gosh.
more familiar and accessible? And are you a big animation fan? Like, I mean, you obviously just mentioned that.
I am. I'm a huge animation fan, and I have nieces and nephews who love animation, and I wanted to be a part of something that they could be like, "Oh, that's Theo Wilson. That's his voice."
Yeah.
Um, but I, I I love the freedom that animation gives me as an actor too. So I enjoy it, and I also think that developmentally, it's important for children to see those kinds of families, especially if they're in one, to know that they are not alone and that it is normal and that they are loved and that their families are appreciated. Um, I probably will be doing a lot more animation as I get older and uglier through the years.
Aw.
So, but but yeah, I think it's important. I'm an actor. I'll take any
Yeah.
opportunity.
And you mentioned already a bunch of great live action titles, but also some good animation titles to shout out to are also like Steven Universe, Shira, Loud
Shira,
House.
yeah,
Yeah, I love Shira.
yeah, yeah. I'm also on a show called Casa Grandes
Oh yeah.
that shows LGBT Latino families, and I believe they're in East LA if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And I play a very interesting, questionable character on there.
I mean, I wish I had all these like there was like queer coded animation when I was a kid, but I wish I had these like explicit titles like when I was growing up. So it's good to
I
see. Really
literally
good to
want to
see.
come back,
Yeah.
as a young person in the world that I helped create. Yes, absolutely. I want to benefit from all of that.
Once we find the secret to the fountain of youth, we can turn back time and go
Oh,
back.
I don't know. I think that fountain has let go of me.
Oh,
I'm embracing my advanced age.
yeah. I guess kind of shifting back gears. There's obviously still a lot more work needs to be done when it comes to the way LGBTQ people are represented. And I know it's not on one person's shoulders to like fix it, but being in the industry as long as you have being a veteran, what are some things that you think the Hollywood can improve on when it comes to LGBTQ representation? And what are some problems
Um,
that you still see are plaguing the industry?
yeah, obviously, I can't sit here and say that we are in the same place that we were 30 years ago or 25 years ago when my so-called life was on the air, because at the time I literally was the only gay man who was a
Mhm.
series regular, and I was only one of two Latinos at all on television at the time with Jimmy Smits. So we are clearly living in a new world. But yes, there is still work to be done. And, when we look at the characters on television, in terms of LGBTQ characters, for the most part, the largest percentage are still gay white men. Yes, we have more diversity, but the majority, the biggest chunk of those are still gay white men. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of diversity. And when I talk about diversity, I'm also talking about the fact that we still need to see more trans people. We still, believe it or not, one of the places that we see the least depictions of is bisexual people, even though they make up most of the LGBTQ community, yet we see less of them on television. So I would like to see more bi people. But overall, I think the biggest thing that I would love to see is that a show on one of the major networks that is centered on LGBTQ life. That does not exist.
Mhm.
Pose is on FX. Star Trek Discovery is on Paramount Plus. You know, I can go down the line. But on network TV, which has the largest and broadest viewing population, there is no show that is centered on LGBTQ life. And that needs to change. So those are my major asks. And you know, just in turn, what I will end on a positive note. I love how ubiquitous we are, right? Like we can turn on any kind of show in any kind of genre, and you will find LGBTQ people in some form. And that didn't just happen. You know, that was hard work you know, by activists and by people who work in the media who were really driving the industry to make these changes. And so while I am relieved that a lot of work has gone, you know, noticed and we have improved, there is a lot of work to be done.
I know GLAAD's most recent Where We Are on TV report, the figure is something like 9.1% of all series regular characters are LGBTQ, and it's a little bit of a decline from last year, which was 10.2%, which was an all-time high. But do like numbers like that? I mean, still like 10% is like still a lot. Do numbers like that still make you hopeful, or like what is it?
I mean, you know, having worked with GLAAD very closely through the years, having worked at GLAAD as their spokesperson and a director of media at there, I know that last year was a difficult year to quantify. You know, there was so much that COVID affected in terms of what the networks were able to complete and what they were able to put on the air. So I'm really looking forward to the post-COVID world where we can go back to the gains that we were making pre-COVID, because there really was a real dynamism to the kinds of depictions and programming that we were seeing that included LGBTQ folks. So I'm excited to see the next steps we make after this lull that I think really was just a reflection of our COVID times. So I challenge the networks, the streaming, the entire industry to remember the work that we were doing before COVID and get back to building on that.
I think we're all ready for a post-COVID world. Like
Yes.
seriously.
I definitely am.
Yeah. You've played a lot of great roles in your career, but Ricky from My So-Called Life was definitely, obviously, a seminal role, especially for that time period. Was Ricky someone you wished you saw yourself on TV when you were growing up, and what's it like knowing that like people like my generation and generations newer, like you mentioned, it's on Hulu now, will be like looking at you and seeing, oh, that's me, and seeing that for the first time? Does that still blow your mind even all these years later?
Yeah. You know, I think one of the most satisfying things I experienced in the last year was when Hulu started airing My So-Called Life, or I guess streaming it. That's the actual term. When they were started streaming it, the reaction from young people who had never seen it before was really overwhelming for me, because they appreciated how three-dimensional, how resonant Ricky still is for even this generation that is so much more in tune with their sexuality. I'm speaking broadly, of course, but you know, in comparison to my generation, when this show first aired. And so I love just how much people latch onto him. And I think it's because of how vulnerable he is and how specific he is that he becomes universal, and people fall in love with him uh, because he's so fully drawn. And it's incredibly satisfying for me all these years later to know that that still holds up and still holds true. Um, because the whole point of that depiction of that show and that character's arc was to give young people the permission to go on the journey of becoming who they actually know they are, without um, fear, um, and with the knowledge that they will be loved and supported, and that it's something that's necessary for them to do. So, and I love how the young people who watched that show originally are now the parents of the young people watching it now, and that they can have this common experience and have a conversation about Ricky that is nuanced and hopefully healing for a lot of people.
And all these years later, after Ricky, do you still like taking on queer roles, or like, I know there's like discussions about queer actors playing queer roles, but do you feel like you still, and I don't know if you're if it gets retiring for you, but what are your thoughts on that? And like, do you?
You know, I have always said that um, it's more important to me that it's good, you know, and I've always known that my career, in many ways, um, that I wanted to use it to tell the stories of my people, of
Mhm.
LGBTQ people, of LGBTQ people of color, and that I was making myself available to storytellers who wanted to go on that journey with me. And um, I've always been more attracted to the LGBTQ roles, or to with the ones I play, the G the G and Q roles. um, so I feel like what I do um, is my way of getting into the bloodstream, right? Of having an emotional conversation with an audience about the characters that I play. And if they can go on this journey with me and this character that I'm taking them on, that at the end of that, they have a bit more um, uh, knowledge and understanding of our people and how we live, and or how we want to live in regards to Star Trek Discovery. You know, the world that we want to reach, where our sexuality and our gender um, has no bearing on our ability to succeed and be part of the solution of saving the world, which at the moment needs a lot of saving.
Mhm. And it sure does. That's the understatement of the century.
And and because it does,
Yeah.
it calls for all hands on deck, and
Mhm.
that includes LGBTQ people.
Mhm. Okay, kind of a fun question. Let's say
Tell
a
me.
major network, a major network gave you a bunch of money, and you're putting your showrunner hat on, and you could create like your dream queer TV
I,
project. Describe
I
what that
can't
would
tell
look like.
you. I can't tell you because I'm actually creating it right now, and somebody's going to hear it and going to steal it.
Uh,
Um, but here's what I will say.
mhm,
Here's what I will say. Um, I want to make the show that I was talking about, the show where LGBTQ lives and characters are at the center of that show, and we are on a major network where we get the broadest audience to go on that trip with us.
mhm,
And I want the show to be inhabited by three-dimensional characters who, yes, are LGBTQ and are having that experience, but that's not all that their lives are about, because as you and I know, that's not all our lives are about.
mhm.
Um, but I think it's time for us to have the spotlight on our lives, And what I understand about that is that the more specific we get in telling those stories about our lives, the more universal it is, and the more people will be able to relate and understand. And so, I'm looking forward to making it.
Hmm. Was that some tea you spilled? Oh, I can't wait to
Well,
see
I mean,
that.
I got, it's there's nothing, what am I saying? There's nothing done or sold yet. I'm
Mm.
working on it. I'm working on it.
We can't wait to see it. Whatever happens.
I'm a little, I have a gig right now, so I'm
Yeah.
thinking of, in terms of the
Mhm.
future.
S- So, I guess a lot of the conservative criticism that gets thrown at TV shows like aimed at queer youth is that they aren't quote unquote like family friendly, and that they shouldn't
Mm.
be teaching kids anything about sexuality. What would you say to that kind of criticism, where obviously it's only leveled at the LGBTQ characters and LGBTQ inclusive shows?
Well, I would just say that we have families too, and we
Hmm.
come from families too, and we want to have families. So that criticism doesn't make any sense to me.
Hmm.
Everyone has a family. Everyone is a part of a family in one way or another, or wants to create one of their own. So I don't really see the value in that criticism in
Hmm.
any way.
Period. And I guess we only have a few minutes left just to wrap things up. So, would you say you're hopeful for the future of LGBTQ youth in media? And um, what are your just parting thoughts on getting to see more and more queer
I'll
kids
tell
make it?
you, I am hopeful. I've never been more hopeful, and the reason why I'm hopeful is because there are more LGBTQ filmmakers and storytellers who are telling their own story and using this medium in order to do so. When I look at Lena Waithe, for instance, who is creating content um, and starring in it and being quite specific, especially in this season of Master of None, which I got to see, which is
Mhm.
unlike anything I've gotten to see on television ever. It's that good, and she's that good, and the writing is unreal. But that kind of storytelling that resonates so truthfully because it comes from someone's lived experience, um, is what we need, and we'll be seeing more of that because we are seeing more and more people year after year feel more free to do that. And this young generation now, these 15, 16-year-olds who are coming up, I'm just like, get out of the way. Let them do what they got to do.
Yeah.
I feel like my job these days is to clear their path and to listen and learn from them, because they grew up in a world that was more friendly to them than the world that I grew up in. And I think that kind of freedom allows for a creativity and expression that is going to be mind blowing and world changing. And I'm looking forward to it. I just want to be around for it. Hire me.
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely in some exciting times, and I will echo your statement on Master of None with Lena Waithe. I got to see the third season too, so
Wasn't it
beautiful.
good? I mean, it's
Yeah.
so the thing that I love about it is that they weren't afraid of the silence of life.
Hmm.
Those quiet silences in our lives where a lot is going on, was really great to watch and to feel to feel um, to feel her really take us into her life. I feel like we got a sense
Hmm.
of what Lena's life was like
I
in a
would
lot
love
of
to
ways.
live my queer cottagecore fantasy with someone one day, so
Yes.
it made me feel like I could live that.
Listen, I have been alone in this apartment since October.
Oh, oh.
Okay? Yeah. My virginity has grown back.
Oh, well, thank you so much again, Wilson, for taking the time out to talk to me and doing this with Frameline. It's been a pleasure
My
getting to
pleasure.
talk
I
to
miss
you.
San Francisco so much. I can't even tell you.
Mhm.
I can't even tell you.